America, we may have just been unburdened by what has been. Kamala Harris's political career is over. Yes, Kamala Harris, who was vice president, U.S. senator, attorney general, all of those things, all of those accomplishments will probably go off to be a footnote in history. Someone who lost to Donald Trump, who ran for about 107 days for president of the United States. Her political career is effectively over as of this past week. If you didn't hear the news, she did turn down or decline running in the governor race for California. So thank goodness to all of us here in California that Kamala Harris will not be running for governor of California. But more importantly, I think this shows that her political career is basically done. And we're going to get into that. They asked President Trump his thoughts on the fact that Kamala Harris didn't want to run in the California gubernatorial race. And here's his thoughts.
Oh, not you.
Mr. President, Kamala Harris, as you know, is not running for governor of California. She's not going to do it. What do you see in her political future, sir?
Well, she can't speak. She can't talk. She can't do an interview. I thought it was a very strange campaign that we had. But, you know, I had two of them. We were up by like this massive number of points on Biden, and they said, let's change to Kamala. Nobody knew who Kamala was. Nobody knew her last name, Harris. They said, we're going to get Vice President Harris. Everyone said, who the hell is Harris? They only knew her by the first name. But no, I thought she was a terrible candidate. Look, don't forget, she didn't really get the nomination. I mean, that whole nomination was strange. She was the first one out. You know, she took a good amount of points with her when she announced, but nobody knew her. And once they got to know her, she dropped out very shortly after she started. And she started with a pretty good, you know, she was like in second or third place. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call her a skilled politician. Would you?
She's also coming out with a book. Any plans to buy it?
I don't know. I think I'm going to buy it. I'd love to see it. No.
I love to see President Trump reading Kamala Harris's book like on Air Force One. Just being like, this is false. I don't remember this. This isn't true. Nope, this is a lie.
I'd find it. Look, I find everything in politics interesting. I sort of enjoy politics. She wasn't a skilled person. You know, you have skilled politicians, really skilled politicians, and then you have some that aren't. And she was put in a very tough position, I think. She did have a 6-week honeymoon. They were told me, the pros said, you know what, she's going to have a 6-week. And she did. She was like untouchable in terms of everybody thought great. But she didn't do any interviews or anything, which was strange. Not even friendly interviews with friendly reporters like her right there, a really friendly reporter. And you know what happened? People said, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she doing? She made a mistake. She should have done interviews. She didn't run a great campaign, but we beat Biden, and then we had to beat, nobody's beaten two. I had to beat two. That's like Dana White, the great Dana White has a fight, and he has a fighter that's getting the hell knocked out of him. They say, well, let's take him out and put somebody else in. Didn't seem fair to me at the time, but where are we? We're in the White House. So, I mean, you know, so it worked out.
Very serious question.
Now, Mr. President, I mean, it's harsh to say that Kamala Harris was not a skilled politician. I mean, she was attorney general, and then she was U.S. senator, and then she became vice president. So I don't, you know, it might be a little harsh to say that she's not a skilled politician and that she's not a good speaker. I mean, that might be going a little too far.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. So all of this is part of the work of this group.
Okay, duly noted. Well, the reason I say that her career is basically over is because this was really, I think, her last shot to run for something that she probably would have had a good chance of winning. As scary as that is, Kamala Harris had a good chance of winning as California governor. She was polling ahead of everyone else. A lot of the Democrats, mostly because of name recognition. I mean, if you ask people who are running for governor right now as Democrats, Most people wouldn't be able to give you more than one or two names. The fact there's like 6 already who are running shows you that it's a crowded field, and Kamala Harris was the one with the most name recognition. She was pulling ahead just based on that name recognition. But I think other numbers were showing her that these numbers were not going to play out favorably to her. So a lot of people were speculating she turned down the run for California governor because she was pivoting to 2028 and she wanted to go back and run for the White House. However, that's not good news for Kamala Harris either. So what you see here are poll numbers for Kamala Harris, her approval ratings. And if you can see on March 1st, it says 35.1%. And then as of August 4th, 21.1%. So she has dropped precipitously in her approval rating. She has continued to take nosedive after nosedive after nosedive. She's just not popular anymore. There are other Democratic candidates in 2028. Yes, one of them we know is Gavin Newsom, comes from our state. Pete Buttigieg, there's other Democrats who are rising. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're all rising and being a little bit more popular or a lot more popular than Kamala Harris. So now that she's turned down running for governor of California, and 2028 looks like it's a long shot because she's completely unpopular amongst her own Democrats, there is really nowhere else for her to go. I mean, that's basically it. You were vice president. There's really nowhere else to go unless you want to run and be a House representative or something like that. But most of the time you don't go down in politics. You try and get up to the next rung. So that's why I say the outlook does not look good for Kamala Harris right now. Now, she talked about this book. She talked on Stephen Colbert, a show that's getting canceled. So 2 people talking about how their careers are basically over, Stephen Colbert and Kamala Harris, whose careers are basically coming to an end. She talked about this book that she came out with 107 days or is publishing. And her old running mate and her old boss, well, at least the camp behind her old boss, I shouldn't say he because I don't know if he knows what's going on, they came out a little forceful about what might be in that book. And they came out and said from the Biden camp, this is from Mark Halperin, who has his own podcast. It says, quote, "If the Biden people feel threatened, you will hear stories about Kamala Harris as vice president. That will not make her look good," Halperin urged. "It's not like they're at war currently, but I'm telling you, if Joe Biden feels threatened, if his people feel threatened by her, this is going to escalate in a big way," he added. Halperin further asserted that the Biden inner circle pulled out all the stops, quote, "in trying to help her to do the job of vice president. They gave her every opportunity, and they found that in some instances that she has screwed up or emphasized." So Biden camp not holding back. I bet it's more like Jill Biden is actually the one who's threatening Kamala Harris if she has bad stuff to say about Joe Biden in her new book. So she's burned all bridges. California governor is not going to happen. She's not running for that. She can't run for president in 2028. She's immensely unpopular, even in her own party. She might be burning bridges with her old boss, Joe Biden. So where does Kamala Harris go from here? I actually don't have an answer. I don't know where Kamala Harris goes from here. I guess she just becomes like another Hillary Clinton, where she does speeches and stuff like that. There was this article. I want to take this back to California and the gubernatorial race that is happening. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle, who you would think the San Francisco Chronicle, she was from San Francisco. She was the district attorney in San Francisco for a while. They were pretty harsh on her, and they said Kamala Harris isn't the only one who should drop out of the California governor's race. Harris's Wednesday decision, which caps months of will she or won't she speculation, means the long list of ambitious politicians angling for California's top job won't have to campaign against one of the most well-known Democrats in the country. Polling data published earlier this month suggested she would have been California's top choice if she threw her hat in the ring. Goes on to say, for many politicians, the prospect of an all but guaranteed electoral win is irresistible. Historically, this has meant that even arcane, unglamorous roles, such as that of California Insurance Commissioner, are highly sought after, not necessarily because of the job itself, but because they've seen as safe vehicles for political posturing and stepping stones to higher office. And there's a couple of those right now here in California. Ricardo Lara, I think, is one an insurance commissioner who I don't think he really cares about being insurance commissioner. He just thinks it's something he could move up the rungs for. Goes on to say, California can't afford to treat its governorship as a mere launching pad for higher office, and that's why it would have been a mistake for Harris to run. Her focus was never going to be fully on California. It was always going to be on the White House. Huh. That sounds familiar. I wonder who that reminds you of. Ultimately, the job of leading California is too complicated and consequential for its chief executive to be consumed by other ambitions. We're already dealing with the fallout of a governor who's mentally checking himself out of California and into the White House. We all know which one applies to Newsom. In a May survey, a solid 54% of Californians said the governor is more focused on his own presidential prospects than on fixing the problem in the state he leads. While voters may desire Democrats who can fight back, they also want Democrats who can competently perform the job they're elected to do. Consider the Chronicle's July poll, which found that half of San Francisco's wanted Mayor Daniel Lurie to remain focused on addressing local issues, compared to 29% who wanted him to help lead the national resistance. So there is sort of I guess you could say, a little turn here in California because of the problems that we have between homelessness and crime and unaffordability and the housing and energy and all that stuff. And I can go on and on and on. That even Democrats here in California aren't that enthused about you using the California governor's mansion as a way to springboard your way into the White House. They actually want someone who can fix problems. I know that's shocking that you want to elect politicians and governors who are actually going to, help fix problems. And Gavin Newsom hasn't done that. A lot of people think that that poll shows 54% of people think that he hasn't done that. We know he's all focused on running for the White House, even though as much as he tries to say he's not running for the White House. And I think this hurts one particular politician, which has got to be Katie Porter, who in most of her initial ads and in most of her initial press releases and videos she's put out, most of them are about her battling Trump. And if the voters here in California are saying, look, we want you to focus on local issues, not just be the Trump resistance, because that's not as important to us. Look, you being Trump resistance doesn't put food on the table, help me buy a house, help me put, gas in my car. That might be a problem for some Democrats who are solely focused on just being the resistance for President Trump, just like Katie Porter is right now. But where does that leave Kamala Harris? It basically leaves her as an irrelevant figure in politics as of this point. She had her time. She was vice president. She's not going to be governor of California. And I think much like Hillary Clinton, she's probably going to go off to get paid huge sums of money to give speeches, or maybe she won't get paid huge sums of money to give speeches because we've seen her speeches before. But regardless, she will be that figure like Hillary Clinton who will go around, give speeches, give her thoughts on some things, and try to, as she says, change things from the outside. But effectively, I can say this with all confidence, I think Kamala Harris's entire political career is over as of last week. So let me know in the comments, do you think that this is the end of Kamala Harris and her political career, and we'll never see her run for anything ever again?